All righty. And welcome to City Business with Michael Halley joining us to give his take on what went down at City Hall. This is Jimmy Moore, James Moore to be exact, KRUU-FM 100.1 on your FM dial, welcoming Jason Strong and FMC into the house. Did a great job the other night, great tasting at Green Building Supply once a month. Quite a turnout there with Sabita Sani and Sabi's Cafe, and quite elegant. I happened to stroll by. Beautiful facility there, and joining us to discuss what went down last night at City Hall. I hear it was relatively brevicious. Brevine. Anyway, I heard it was not real long. Michael, how you doing? Good to see you.
Good, glad to be here. Yes, you are correct. It was a relatively short meeting. This is an informal review of our regular City Council meeting for September 11th, 2017. We started, Mayor Malloy called a moment of silence for the people who had lost their lives September 11th, 2001. Before we started, it only happened a handful of times that our meeting fell on that date, so we thought we'd just take a moment to honor those people. Then we got into our consent agenda. We have a resolution for a hire at the police department, Robert Barker. So he hasn't been sworn in yet, so I don't really have any information on that, but another new officer.
Yeah, I met one of the others that were going around. I think Rusty is now going to be moving to the sheriff's department. Exactly. Yep. And so he was just showing him different spots around town. I happened to bump across them at that point, but kind of seeing the lay of the land. And so there's another one on docket, huh? Yeah,
and I think that's Rusty's replacement, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
All right. No public appearances. We had 4 action items. Consideration that the Lincoln Avenue manhole installation is final. So that's the new road, city's newest street. It's out by the Pilot Grove Savings.
Right.
Pilot Grove Savings.
Yeah.
Bank. And now on the north side of that road is a new housing unit. It's a quadruplex. So 4 units in one building. Not quite complete, but this extension of the sewer line out there was to accommodate that building and potentially more that may be built in that area in the future.
Great.
Hopefully will be built in that area in the future. So we accepted that small kind of mini project for the manhole as final. Also accepted Adams Avenue sewer project as final. So that's replacement of some sewer lines on Adams Avenue. The next phase is to pave it. And I was told that the construction crew is looking at, let's just say early October, since it was kind of arranged, but looking at early October to start and get that paved up pretty quick. So currently it's gravel on a portion of Adams Avenue.
Okay.
Until they get that paved. The next one was, we had a very nice slideshow. So our city engineer, Melanie Carlson, presented the downtown facade project as final. And so she had created a montage of before and after pictures of all the properties. So it was 8 property owners and 15 addresses that were included in the final project. If you are a liker of the city's Facebook page, you can see pictures on there as well, before and after. And the project went mostly without any hitches. Just a little review. The city originally applied 3 years ago, but took some time for us to nail down our matching portion. Our matching portion came from, which was 10%, came from the sale of Logan. So it was kind of a one-time cash contribution. And the initial proposal was that it would be 50% grant, 50% property owners for the cost of the improvements. The bid for the entire project came in high, came in over budget. So the grant decided to cover 66 approximately percent in order to keep the cost for the property owners about the same. And so what that meant was just maybe some, well, not maybe, but some of the work that was originally planned didn't get included because the bid came in high. But the council decided to accept that bid instead of putting out for rebidding, just to keep the project moving. And it was supposed to be done end of June, had a little bit of an extension to finish up. So now it's all done. So the buildings that were included were Elks, Central Park Furnishing, the building that houses Chickadee, and the Collector Store. That's on the north side of the square. Morningstar Studio, which I think should win the award for the biggest transformation. The stucco facade came off and the brick underneath has been restored. So it's really
beautiful stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty amazing. Davis Palmer Real Estate. That's on the corner, the intersection of Court and Burlington. And that, because it has two sides that are considered facades, got work done on both the east and the south portion. ERA Real Estate, the India Cafe and U.S. Cellular Building, and finally Brown Law. So all those buildings. So if you are on Central Park and you just look around, you'll see tuck pointed brick and new windows and new paint and historic hues, and just a really dressing up of these facades. And not just that, but new windows means more energy efficiency. The tuck pointing actually protects the brick and allows it to extend its life cycle. So the work should extend the longevity of these buildings as well as beautifying the downtown. So it's just one of those lovely public-private partnerships. I don't know if the city will look into doing this in the future, because there were people who were interested but then didn't end up signing on, who then after the deadline wanted to sign on. That kind of happens sometimes. Sure. So maybe we'll do it again, but we'll just have to figure out where our match comes from and
combine that with the beautiful work that had been done with the roads and the bricks and all that been laid out.
Streetscape. Yep.
Yeah, and what was that? That was
Great
Places, right? Yep. That element, you can't hardly walk around and not feel, the power of the really nice layout of that. It's something. Yep. Although it's awfully quiet at night, early on in Honor Square. I heard that George's might have stopped being open. That's the rumor. I don't know if I've verified that. But I know that...
Can't verify rumors.
I heard...
Sign on the door. Wow.
And also Torino's is down to closed on Mondays, which is after 50 years coming here, 45 years, is another step. But I respect anybody having a day off in business as it is. But it's a great downtown area, and it just looks great. And we're having great weather right now.
Well, and I wouldn't use any specific closing of any businesses for a day or closing of businesses a thermometer of the health. Could be that people are just eating different types of foods and
could be
maybe just not as interested in that cuisine that those restaurants offer, because our other restaurants downtown seem to be thriving.
Oh, of course. Yeah. There's we see the Cider House doing great guns. I think they're now starting to if I'm not mistaken, they are now starting to be distributed, have distributors for their cider, and of course there's a big event coming up at the Cider Works. So there are a lot of things going on. It's just the downtown. It's interesting, and of course Shokai is kicking there, and the old Shokai, now the Pho place. So it's just interesting to watch. I mean,
it is, yeah.
Life is ebb and flow, but congratulations back to the original point on the facade development. That was took some years to get there, but it's quite remarkable. It's a great downtown area.
Really, and the visual impact it's very obvious in the downtown. And what I noticed was that this work seemed to inspire other work that wasn't part of the project, but were other building owners dressing up their properties as well, maybe a new paint job or fixing something up. And so there is kind of that ripple effect when you do this kind of thing. All right, our final action item was just what's called a letter of engagement with Allers and Cooney, and they're going to help with the easement acquisition for step 2 of the sewer conveyance project. I heard the number of I don't know if it was lots or the number of actual easements was in the 60s. So it's a lot of parcels or something, but it's a considerable amount of work. And the city can't do it alone, so we contract with these companies who have worked with us before to help get those easements. All right, we moved on. The mayor's report. Let's see. He doesn't always include things on the agenda, so I have to use the old noggin. He did give an update on the search for the new city administrator. The council is meeting today for a work session to review the applicants and make a decision on who then they will first interview via Skype. And then after that, they'll narrow it down to some finalists who will come for some in-person interviews.
Do we have any idea how many are being considered for the position yet? Or
so last night they said there were only 7 applicants.
Okay.
That seems way too low. So I asked the mayor afterwards, and maybe he got an updated number of 20, which is more in line with the number of applications that we've had in the past.
I see.
Let's see. What else did he talk about? Well, I'm going to move on to committee and board reports because those I didn't remember.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you coming in. By the way, Michael Halley's 4th Ward council person, and is gracious enough, generous enough to come in and share what went down each week, and that after each session, I should say, every other week mostly. And we broadcast that then the day after on Tuesday at lunchtime, Thursday dinner time, 6:30 p.m., and the following Monday, 6:30 a.m. breakfast time for people to catch up what's going down at City Hall. So,
and I've remembered, and I think that perhaps my mind blocked it out intentionally because it reminds me of the hardest time that I ever had on City Council was the year of 2012 when a portion of Fairfield citizens were upset about radio read water meters.
Right.
And that was just there's a lot of conflict, and
we're talking the meters, right?
The meters that use a radio transmit to send the signal. So the city ended up creating an opt-out program, and the water superintendent at the time, Carl Chandler, decided to make it free of charge. So I think of the 1,800 or maybe it's 2,400 accounts that the city had, about 100 people opted out of having this type of meter. So the mayor brought up the fact that Alliant Energy, who is the city's, we contract with them to provide electric and gas to our citizens, plans to enroll what they call smart meters. I don't like that term because it is kind of an umbrella term for a lot of different technology, but we'll just say that the meters do include a wireless component, and that it would transmit information that way.
And of course, what that does mean, it means it saves people having to come out and check them. They can just do it from home, basically.
Well, depending on how, like, for example, the water meters aren't very powerful. The battery is the type that kind of goes in a watch, and the power is probably akin to a garage door opener. So it only works in a close proximity, but it does mean that the meter reader can sometimes get the signal from the street in the car. Other times they can get it by walking close to the house, but it avoids trumping through backyards, potentially getting bit by dogs or slipping on ice or whatever. So yeah, it's viewed as saving time. Time is money. And so that's why these companies are moving in that direction. So Alliant has talked about unrolling it across their whole territory. And according to the mayor, they're saying they will do Fairfield last, and that and this is just words, nothing in writing, but they would create an opt-out option. So we'll see how it unfolds, but he just felt like he wanted to give the council and the rest of the community a heads up that this is being discussed, and that he has been communicating with the Alliant representatives about it. It'll be interesting. Yeah. I don't want to talk to you about my personal experience, but it would be difficult to imagine an opt-out program for one community. It seems that they would have to put that in place for everyone. So many utilities do offer that. I don't know what percentage, but I would hope that, because it's not just going to be Fairfield, there are going to be people in all their communities who would prefer not to have one for various reasons. And so my hope is that they create that opt-out program early on, so that not just our citizens, but people everywhere who choose not to have one can not have one. So we'll see how it goes. It'll be interesting. But again, it's just something that's out there. I've gotten some emails about it and had some people with some concerns about it. So the city's relationship with Alliant is we have a franchise contract where they provide the service and they charge people directly. So we're not any sort of go-between. But my understanding of that contract is we don't really have a say in how they provide their service. So the city itself cannot force them to do or not do this switch over these meters. But just in good faith, we're trying to convey to them that, hey, our citizens will not be happy if you force this upon them. You need to give an opt-out.
Because of previous concerns.
Exactly. Yep. All right. Committee and board reports. The Water and Sewer Utilities Committee met. Nothing groundbreaking in their report, except for moving forward with that step 2 acquisition of easements. The Environmental and Franchise Utility Committee met, and they're discussing, and you're going to see a survey come out both online and in the water bill. So Waste Management, who provides the recycling and the trash pickup curbside here in Fairfield. Again, very similar. It's a franchise contract with the city. They contract to offer the service at a certain rate, and then it's billed. Actually, that's billed on the city utility. So that's kind of a pass-through, where Waste Management bills the city bills citizens for curbside trash and recycling. Waste Management wants to move in the direction of having a bin the same size as the recycling bin for trash. And I imagine it would be the exact same manufacturer, but maybe a different color. I've seen this in other communities. Green for recycling, maybe yellow for trash. And the reason for them to want to switch to that is that those bins have a built-in lid, and they have a hook or a handle that if Waste Management switches to a new style of truck, can just hook onto the truck. They pull a lever. The employee pulls a lever, and it's lifted and dumped. So again, we're talking about that automation.
Autonomon. No, automatic.
Yeah, making things more automized. We'll just say it that way, to save time and save money. So it's the same reason for the wireless meters, is wanting to switch this.
The big question is who pays for those?
That's what's interesting about it. So if it's a benefit to the company, then you figure they would just front the money for the bins and move on. But they want to add $1.50 per month to the rate that they charge the city. That would then be a pass-through to the citizens. So some people think $1.50 a month, it's worth it for the convenience. Others think, well, $1.50 a month, if you do the math, $18 a year, every year, well, I can buy my own bin for that and not have to pay that every year. So we wanted to hear from the citizens. So I just took the poll myself today, kind of practice round. It's just very simple. It just says, I'm interested in this. I think I'm interested. I want it. All right. I like it the way it is. So basically, it's just one of three, your options. So once this poll comes out, it'll be on the city's website, the city's Facebook page, and I believe a printed out copy will be in the utility bill coming up. So we can get feedback.
What I'm trying to understand is, are they saying this this monthly raise is to cover the cost of the bin?
Yep.
So then if you knew how much the bin costs when they buy them in bulk like that, that would be one thing. Yeah. But that's why it seems,
well, there was talk, I remember years ago, I was reading, this is in the 90s, I was reading about sustainability. And one idea was, if you move away from a purchase model to a lease or a service model. So for example, if I pay a company to have a washing machine in my house, and I pay them for the service of having a functioning washing machine, they're responsible ultimately for it providing that service. Then the idea is they make washing machines that last a long time, are easily repairable, can easily have replacements. So it kind of gets away from the planned obsolescence of technology that intentionally becomes obsolete because it's good for business that people can't use the old model. So changing ports, sizes, or charging stations and all that, that's not an accident. It's done to make people move to the new model. So this would be along those lines, that your $1.50 a month is paying for having this bin that they're responsible for. So if something happens to the bin, they replace it. We did ask about with the recycling. These 96-gallon bins are not small. And I remember when we unveiled and rolled out the single stream recycling, some people complained about the size. It's like, I don't know where to put this thing, and et cetera, et cetera. So Waste Management allowed some people, if you asked for it, to swap to a smaller size. I think it was a 48-gallon. And they said they will do the same thing with this, but you're still paying $1.50. So John Revelinsky, who chairs that committee, said he looks at this as a negotiation, gauging people's interest in that amount. If a lot of people say no, then they go back and they say, well, our citizens aren't interested. Can you give us a lower price? Again, it's you can see how they want to externalize that expense, but what's fair in this situation if it streamlines their operations?
But does that also mean if you have, some people just put out a plastic bag of trash rather than a bin and drag it back? Does that mean they will not pick it up unless it's in one of their bins?
Probably.
Yeah. So, yeah. The uniformity is something that can be understood, but yeah, it's better for them.
Yep. And
is it better for people? And as you know, being in city council, as long as you have, change is always something that if it's forced or if it has to be that, and if it's not going to be uniform, in other words, if some people can opt out of it, then it kind of defeats the purpose of doing it anyway. Although even if 20% or 40% started doing that, it would be faster for some of the time. But yeah, that's why we have community.
Well, there wouldn't be an opt out for the trash. You'd have a size option, but it'd still be the same, because you see some people have the smaller recycling bin. Like, I don't mean this as any derogatory, but little old ladies in some cases didn't want the 96. They wanted something more manageable, so they got a 48. So they'd still have the bin with the same handle that can be automatically hooked. But yeah, it's just interesting to see this kind of process where a business wants to do something that's an advantage for them, but they want the customers to pay for it. I've seen it before. Probably see it again. So the question is, well, are people willing to pay this price?
And what's the response? And that's what the poll. If people want to go to the poll, how do they do that? Or is it?
It'll be in the water bill or utility bills.
Oh, coming. Okay.
And then soon it will be online. You'll see it online. It's not quite ready, but it's getting put up. One advantage though is you can just throw your trash in just like you do the recycling without a bag. So you can fill that thing up if you want, just one piece of trash at a time. And they're okay with that, which is interesting.
There's something egalitarian about that.
It's interesting. All right. Personnel committee. We met before the council meeting. So Rebecca Loper is currently planning and zoning assistant, and she's actually kind of halfway begun her city clerk. So she was hired to replace Joy Messer, who's retiring in October. So then we have to hire for Rebecca's position. So applications were all due by Friday last week. Because we don't have a city administrator, the personnel committee is just handling this on behalf of the council, just to streamline who's going to get an interview, conduct the interviews, and then bring a recommendation to the council. So it's a busy time. We'd love to be able to have this ready in time for the council meeting on the 25th. We'll see if we can get there. The committee did narrow it down to 4 candidates.
Okay, so it's down to 4.
Yep, and we want to interview each one for about 30 minutes. So we have to have a 2-hour meeting and just send out a doodle. That's kind of the way we try to do things, is find out what date works for everyone. So we want to get that person hired soon so that Rebecca can train that person before she has to start full-time with city clerk. It's just, it's really interesting what's happening at City Hall with the city administrator moving away, city clerk retiring.
Yeah, that is quite unusual.
Planning and zoning assistant getting the clerk job.
She was there how long?
37 years.
So that's quite a shift. But I mean, on the upside, since she is moving to the full-time position and she's there, I mean, obviously it's going to be full-time work what she's doing, but because she's right there, that's a little bit of an advantage.
Yeah, exactly. She's still in the building, and so that is
Elvis has not left the building. In this case.
So interesting times, never a dull moment. We included the Wayfinding Commission minutes from August 24th. So Wayfinding Commission, again, to remind, is a commission the mayor formed to move forward on recommendations to increase ease of travel and ease of finding what you're looking for within the community. And it can be even more than that. Can be ease of travel. So for example, plant this idea now. It's not going to come up right now, but just an idea of, are one-way streets downtown visitor friendly? I saw an elderly couple stopped at a stop sign for a minute, just not sure what to do. And you see a lot of people going the wrong way at times. Mm-hmm. One-way streets were kind of the rave at one point, considered very safe. They are mostly an advantage to vehicles, not so much pedestrians or cyclists. So you might see a recommendation to change back to two-way. I say back to because it was not in the far distant past two ways around the square. Some of the simpler recommendations that came up were trimming the evergreen trees, lower branches on Central Park to enhance visibility. So that recommendation was taken to the Park and Rec Advisory Board yesterday, and they voted unanimously we'll take that to council on the 25th. But
makes sense.
It's the only city park that the council votes on. All the other city parks are managed by Park and Rec. But again, it's just, we hired this crew to come to town and look at it through a perspective of, okay, I'm not from here. How can I see everything I need to see? And they found that those trees block the view. You can't actually see the businesses on the other side of the square from one to the other. So trimming up the limbs up to about 7 to 10 feet enhances the visibility. Oh, it's also healthier for the trees. Mm-hmm. The lower branches generally don't have many leaves because the upper branches shade them. And it'll keep the kids from climbing them, which is sad because my kids used to love to climb them, but probably better for safety and such. There are other trees to be climbed, but not those. And then the final... Wow,
there's a train horn that you probably can't hear because our microphones are that way, but there must be somebody working. Must be somebody working on the track there.
Yeah, a little toot. Finally, the police department occasionally rolls over their gun inventory. And so what to do with the old guns. So they're keeping some in the armory for the new ones have problems. They still have a few on hand. But the police chief wanted to make sure this was all done on the up and up. It's to their advantage to sell the old ones rather than to send them back to the manufacturer. And so he can't by law sell them to the public. He doesn't have the right license to do that. So they end up selling them to their officers and their reserve officers. And so he just wanted to make sure that was done as per our financial policy, which is everything's transparent. And so it's talked about at the meeting and a list of the serial numbers of the 40 caliber Glocks that they are phasing out of and moving into some newer unit that you pray never need to be used.
Darn right. And anything else, Michael Halley?
That's pretty much it. I just want to say that there was a lot of interest in the Park and Rec Board meeting yesterday. The policy at the gym is shirts, T-shirts, or tank tops for everyone.
Okay.
And there's some female patrons who feel like a sports bra alone is a top,
And what was the outcome of that?
I don't know. I had to leave. So,
but were they making a recommendation or a conclusion, or was it just
some patrons were asking that a woman's sports bra be considered as a shirt? And so
we'll see what comes out.
But I do know I was there long enough to know that the Park and Rec Superintendent Calvin Todd checked with about 10 other public rec centers in Iowa, and they all have the same policy: T-shirt or tank.
I see.
We'll see. I don't know. I have to wait for those minutes to come out.
We'll see. Literally. All right. Well, that'll do it for today's City Biz. Thank you so much, Michael Halley. I'm James Moore. Jason Strong in the house, Fairfield Media Center, FMC. And we're out of here. If you're listening live on Tuesday, votes going on today for the school board. By the time you hear this rebroadcast, it will have been decided. But thanks for tuning in. More great programming coming up in just a moment. Stay tuned.